didn't put that in.
Hello, Gary? All right, thanks.
Oh, that explains it.
Welcome to the Conservation Commission meeting held at One Government Center, Fall River, Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 5:30. Can be viewed through Facebook, FRG TV, and we'll start with roll call. Oh, let me do the minutes for IB meeting. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We'll start with roll call here.
Chris Boyle, present.
Jim Cusick.
John Brandt,
Louis Ferraro.
Paul Amaral.
James Hornsby?
and we have Dan Aguirre from the Conservation Agent, and Nina is the Administrative Assistant. And from FRG TV, we have Gary Letts. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
So moved. Well, the last meeting would have been, or we did not have.
There were no minutes.
There were no minutes.
Minutes, so we don't have, okay,
February meeting.
all righty.
Do you want to approve the minutes of the February
February
meeting?
meeting you'll be approving.
Okay,
Because
February,
you
that
couldn't
was,
approve them at the March meeting because we didn't have one.
okay, that was
Yeah.
February.
Oh, there was no meeting.
February
Six.
6th.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 6th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 All right.
Yes.
Okay, minutes pass, all right. First, under old business, is a request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-739. Owner applicant is CML2 LLC. Project location is 507 Oldham Street. Assessors map is J-21-0001 and 005. Applicant requesting a certificate of compliance stating that all work regulated by orders and conditions have been satisfactorily met. This has been tabled from February 6th. Do we have any new information on this one?
No, there's nothing been added since. We're still waiting for the applicant, if you remember, to construct that little retaining wall behind the sidewalk and finish up that earthwork. So weather's gotten better, so I would anticipate that that would be done soon.
Okay. Can I have a motion to table matter?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Next is a request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-765. Owner applicants Highland Farms Development 2 LLC. Project locations 245 Hillstone Lane. Assessors map is U-04-0059. Applicant requesting a certificate of compliance stating that all work regulated by order of conditions has been satisfactorily completed. This was tabled from February
February
6th.
So if you all remember, this was in outstanding order of conditions because some loaming and seeding hadn't been completed. The applicant, you'll see later on this evening under item 7, under new business, has put in a proposal to install an in-ground pool. And that's part of the reason why the final loaming and seeding wasn't done yet, because the homeowner was planning on putting in this pool. So I would assume that the remaining work under this item, 24-765, would not be completed until after the pool was permitted and constructed. So I would make a recommendation that you table the matter.
Okay, can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Can I have a motion to move the bylaw discussion to the end of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Next, a notice of intent is SE-24-811. Owner applicant is Tyler Langusi and King Philip Loft LLC. Project location is 386 Kilburn Street. Assessor's map is B-17-001. Filed by SciTech Engineering and Consultant, Inc. on behalf of Tyler Langus of King Phillips Loft LLC. The applicant proposes restoration of mill building into apartments with associated site work, including parking, grading, drainage, utilities, and landscaping. Related site improvements, portions of the site are located within the 100-foot bordering vegetated wetland area. This was tabled from February 6th.
Good evening, Al Trapimus with SciTech Engineering, representing Tyler Langlos for this project. And We did make our initial presentation at the January meeting, and at that time, we received a number of comments from engineering and community utilities. We did prepare a response for those, and from what I understand, I'd have to defer to Dan, but I believe that those have been substantially addressed.
Yes.
So one of the items here that was, or a few items that were significant, based on the additional information that we had, we redesigned the stormwater controls for the project so that now there is no increase in runoff either toward Cook Pond or toward Kilburn Street. We are not asking for, even though this is a project that we could ask for relief under the stormwater regulations. We comply with all the stormwater management regulations now, TSS removal. We've reduced the amount of impervious area from existing from 82% to 78%. And one of the items that the board had requested in January was that we look at providing a gravel path along the rear of the property from one side to the other. Even though this is for the residents only, it's not open to the public, that gravel path has been added as well from one side of the property to the other. With that, I would just like to conclude my presentation and open it up for questions.
John, if I could, first, I would offer that the applicant has addressed all of the concerns that we had through site plan review and as the Conservation Commission, with the exception of one. I think we still have one outstanding comment that was in regards to requesting an analysis or narrative with regards to the reduction of nitrogen and phosphorus into Cook Pond. So that should be made a condition that that analysis be submitted to the satisfaction of the Department of Community Utilities. Not saying if it's yes, no, indifferent, but just it was their comment, so something should be submitted to their satisfaction.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, just one, so just to backtrack with respect to the runoff. So initially, you were sending some of the runoff towards Cook Pond, and, it was going to be split pretty much prior to you assuming the property between Kilburn and Cook Pond. And so what percentage of the runoff would be going to Cook Pond? If in case I missed it, I apologize.
Well, initially, one of the comments that we had from community utilities was some ponding that occurred in Kilburn Street, so we rerouted on the proposed, rerouted it all to go to Cook Pond, which increased the runoff to Cook Pond and decreased the runoff to Kilburn Street. However, one of the, based on the comments that we heard, that was not acceptable. We couldn't increase the runoff to Cook Pond, so we essentially put it back the way it was, where the front third of the site that was going toward Kilburn Street still goes toward Kilburn Street. We added infiltration to address any increase.
Okay.
And we also, the rear portion of the site, approximately 2/3 continues to go toward Cook Pond, and that's also has a slight reduction over existing conditions. We've also met the TSS removal requirements where it's a minimum of 80% total suspended solids removal, whereas right now it's just sheet flow off into the so it's all been improved, both to Kilburn Street and also to Cook Pond.
Okay. So I think the question I had at the time, back in January, was, so the parking areas around the mill, the majority of that runoff would go towards Cook Pond?
The rear goes towards
Cook Pond.
Cook Pond.
How many parking spaces are out there approximately? It doesn't have to be exact.
131 between the front and the rear.
Okay.
Shoot.
So what's important to understand is that under a project like this, where it is considered a redevelopment project, the applicant can make the argument that they do not need to comply with stormwater management guidelines. This project, as presented in design, exceeds those requirements. after listening to your comments and through the city's comments with the Department of Community Utilities and myself. So the applicant has been very willing to work with the requirements in excess of what was required. Initially, the initial design, again, took all of the stormwater and directed it to Cook Pond, and that was in the first attempt to satisfy community utilities' concerns with putting water into Kilburn Street. That was clearly not, your way of dealing with drainage, and you were correct to make that assessment. So when we sat back down with the Department of Community Utilities and explained this to them, and the applicant was able to provide drainage calculations in support of it, they have reduced the runoff to both design points, both Cook Pond and Kilburn Street, and have incorporated every BMP required, even under new construction.
Any other further? Jim?
Yeah, I'd hope we wouldn't have any runoff in the Cook Pond. I parked my car, and I now have a 4-year-old car, and I hope to be still driving in 5 or 6 years, and my car may have an oil leak. Okay, I go to visit somebody, or I rent. My oil drips. It goes in a Cook Pond.
Not necessarily.
Well, if I
Mr.
park in the
Chairman.
right place and no?
One of the items, two of the items we have here is that we have stormwater treatment units along the rear of the property, and all of the runoff is routed through the stormwater treatment units, and they do have a capacity of oil removal. Also, the catch basins are stormwater treatment units, so they provide more removal than your typical 4-foot deep sump catch basin with a hood. So there is oil removal, a degree of oil removal for this, as well as the siltation, removal of
Didn't know
the
that.
siltation.
Okay.
Good. I have a second question, second set of stuff. It's your gravel path and back. This is going to be along the shore?
It's going to be along the rear of the parking area because some areas here it drops off pretty quickly.
Yep.
And what we did not want to do was start removing all of the vegetation along the shore.
Okay, and at some point, at one point in the master plan the hope was there would be a path all the way around the pond or around a major part of it. And some has been started and some has not been started. Would this gravel path tie in eventually?
Reverend, if I can answer that, so all we can do now and require this applicant to do through this filing is to construct a path. It would be up to the city, not the Conservation Commission, to negotiate with the owner with regards to access rights to that, if it could be added to additional paths on either side of it.
That's
So
probably
This is
correct.
about as far as the Conservation Commission has the authority to get to.
Well, I hadn't gotten to the point of requiring anything, okay? I'm trying to find out information. Now, is what Mr. Aguirre said correct, as far as you know?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the path, what I'm really asking is, if we did the path, would it be that path that might, after the negotiation that Mr. Aguirre has explained, would that work?
It is in a location that we could tie into from either side, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, because there is some controversy over this, and I don't want to get into that, okay?
Thank you.
I do have one more question. A previous owner said repeatedly that there was public access on a strip of land adjacent to that property. Do you know anything about that? Is that true?
That's the first I've heard.
Well, actually, I think I mentioned it, but I wasn't as clear in the meeting ago. Do you know anything, Mr. Aguirre?
I do, so what I do know is that there is an area along Dwelly Street that the previous owner conveyed a strip of land that provides us access to the parking area along Cook Pond at Dwelly Street. So there's a substantial area there of paved, what was an older paved parking area, probably 200 feet deep or so off of Dwelly Street.
No, is
That
this
allows us to get off of Dwelly and provide us access as a starting point.
Now, is this adjacent to this?
It's adjacent to the houses that are being built on Dwelly Street and off of the subdivision. Now, to get from that location to this location would require traversing Mr. Kafori's land, which is permitted for a residential subdivision. That's the gap in accessibility that we do not have. So when the city sold it to Mr. Kafori, they did not require or reserve that right to get from that point A to point B, which would be at this property.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. And I hope that this was, in my judgment, a very poor decision on the city's part. And I'm trying to rectify it, is basically what I'm doing.
I don't think
And,
that's part of our,
What?
that's not part of our jurisdiction.
Well, it's, you know, I've gotten more information tonight about this than I have in a year, probably 2 years. And part of the problem is that there were a number of misstatements made in a number of places, particularly, for example, the South End Neighborhood Association had different information. So I'm just saying where I'm coming from, and I think I'm concluding. Thank you.
Any other questions? So, can I make a motion to issue an ordinance of conditions with specific conditions as prior to the start of work, the applicant shall provide satisfactory documentation as to the, how the proposed BMPs will be reduced in nitrogen and phosphorus into Cook Pond,
Make a motion as stated.
With all standard conditions as
with
well.
all standard
Real
conditions
standard,
included.
Second.
Thank you. Aye.
Wait a minute, any questions from the audience?
Any questions from the audience? All righty. Roll call vote then?
Aye.
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 All right,
Yes.
No.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Set of plans.
No, not until we get that part of it resolved. I had printed the ones that were emailed, so,
Which one resolved?
about the well, at least the narrative. I wanna make sure we don't have to change anything as
Okay.
far as the nitrogen and phosphorus.
All right.
You guys can deal with Paul Furlan directly or send me whatever that narrative is, just to satisfy him.
Thank you.
Yes, we will.
Oh, okay. We'll take an extra set. I know you're just gonna throw them away, so.
I know the whole thing.
Yeah, me from having to print them. And I think there were a couple of minor sewer-related items, but we'll send you that now. Thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, next is a notice of intent, SC-24-813, owner applicant is Stephanie Maderas and R&D Realty Trust, project location 185 Napoleon Street, assessors map is D-16-0046, filed by R&D Realty Trust on behalf of applicant. Applicant proposes to construct a single-family home house in a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands associated with perennial stream, which has 25-foot riverfront area. No work is proposed within the riverfront area. This is tabled from February 6th meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Want me to start?
Yes, sir.
Make it quick.
Thank you, sir.
So this matter was tabled due to a lack of quorum at the last meeting. We had sent out some preliminary comments to the applicant and to their engineer. They have revised the plans to accommodate all of our concerns and questions. It's construction of a single-family house. They met and shown the requirement of the 25-foot no disturb zone. They've shown erosion and control. Roof and the grading and the proposed activities in accordance with any of the provisions of the Wetlands Protection Act. So it's my recommendation that an order of conditions is issued. So by all means, ask any questions or add any comments that you may like.
Does the board have any questions?
No question.
All right, can I have a motion to issue?
Any neighbors in opposition or
Any
in favor?
neighbors? Nope, okay. So can I have a motion to order, issue an order of conditions with standard orders of conditions?
Motion to approve NOI with standard order of conditions?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
Glenn Kowalski from EBT Environmental Consultants. Pleasure being in front of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for being responsive during the whole
Thank you very
process.
much. Appreciate it.
Next is notice of intent, SE-24-814, owner applicants Berkeley Street Limited LLC, project location is Bell Rock Road, assessor's map is W-19-002, filed by Civil and Environmental Consultant, Inc., on behalf of applicant. The applicant proposes a site stabilization plan consisting of regarding previous disturbed portion of the site, adding loom and topsoil as needed, and hydro seeding.
Actually, I don't need it.
Could you guys just state your name and,
Carlos Sculte with Civil and Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant.
Good evening, Attorney John Zajac for the applicant, Berkeley Street Limited. Do you previously have the plans? I have a plan.
No, we only have one. If you send a presentation plan, we have it to put up, so you might want to use that.
Okay,
I mean, we have, everybody has their own copies of it.
okay. No easel, right?
What's that?
No easel, right?
No.
Look at this one.
I didn't put anything in the report about that. Like, on this, I got it on this one.
You know what?
How about I? It's a little bit easier. We'll go a little low tech on this one.
All right, thank you. So good evening. This is, we're here on a notice of intent. We read the purpose of it. This is a project on Bell Rock
Excuse me,
Road.
could you speak a little more loudly?
Yes, of course, happy to.
Thank you.
This is a continued hearing on our project on Bell Rock Road. We had filed a notice of intent. This is a site that had been under some excavation for some period of time. It was originally permitted as potentially 3 house lots. I know this commission had had some concerns about that. I'm happy to report that it has been our decision that we're likely to, we are gonna donate this. We're not gonna end up building the houses there. So what we're looking to do now is to just finish the site, stabilize it, get it back to the appropriate grade for drainage, and loam and seed it to stabilize it. And as the commission knows, we've also been in contact with Natural Heritage. They came out, we had a visit there. They had some concerns because now it's within the area for the eastern box turtles. They were pretty satisfied with the fact that we have silt sock or silt fence around most of it for the existing work that we're doing. They're gonna let us know if there's anything else that they need us to do. They would have further conditions if we were developing it for house lots, but they don't think they'll have a lot other than keeping it free of turtles till we're done. because there's never been any turtles on site that anyone's observed. They also inspected, they were pretty, confident that that wouldn't be a problem. They just want to keep it that way till we're done doing work. So, I think most or all of you have probably seen the site in the past. So the goal is to grade it according to this plan, so that we can raise some elevation here for appropriate drainage to go down into the swale that's already there, to go under the roadway that we've built that already has pipe. Everything, when we were out there, seemed like was working fine. It drains under the road and then down into the wetlands.
Want me to start?
Sure.
So that the commission can recall, this filing is in response to the second enforcement order with regards to this property. Is it the third formal? Third?
I believe it's the third
I know there was
enforcement.
at least two formals, spreading out over a period of 2 or 3 years. It's a lengthy file of the applicant proposing and committing to doing a number of things and has not taken place. It appears now that all of the ledge has been removed from the site to an elevation far below the water table, that the restoration of this site is a very pressing issue, but one now that the applicant basically just doesn't have any other use for the land, because they're not gonna build homes on it, but they basically got what they wanted out of it. So we had made it clear during a number of public hearings, at least 2 since I've been here, about the types of things that you all had made comments on, about what you wanted to see happen out here as part of the restoration. Part of the enforcement order was to cease all activity on the site until a notice of intent was filed. That has not been the case. The applicant has continued to fill in the depressed area, filling in where the site was excavated to below the water table. With what kind of material, we do not know. We had made it clear at that time that we were going to want and require some material testing of all of the imported soil conditions, because you had questions about what you had seen being brought onto the site and spread. So when you look at the plan that's being proposed, although it grading-wise is not all that terrible, there are some improvements that can be made, like widening the proposed directional swale, specifically the 132 contour, to make that a little bit of a flatter area and get a wider berth rather than channelize this flow. When I reviewed the plan, I had a few recommendations about the grading and some of the construction activity. One would be that substantial riprap sedimentation, 4 bays be constructed on either side of the culvert crossing the driveway. There should be a 50-foot crushed stone driveway access area if they're gonna keep a driveway, or they could just remove it completely. We had asked multiple times that the gate be restored and reconstructed. That has not taken place, and the site has been continuously open for months. And it's been monitored by Chris Boyle and myself many times over this period. So if you drove out there now, you could just drive in.
Well, they have a small, it's a.
Right, they have
a 1/4-inch
cable
plastic coated cable
that's
from a
attached to
dog
2
run.
poles that are
A piece of-
normally laying down.
piece of scrap metal.
Scrap metal. So we need a formal gate to be installed to close off access to this area, because this will become a dumping ground.
Well, in speaking with people on the site, there have been incidents of dumping out
Sure.
there already.
Okay.
And
So-
any open
so
spot,
you
it's
would-
gonna happen, it's not,
So you
any
would
open
think you would
spot.
want to protect from being held responsible for the dumping by installing the gate that was requested a long time ago.
Going back to
When we look at the site and the
2018.
restoration area, we just have a proposed loam and seed of the disturbed areas. The commission may consider the requirement of planting some trees or shrubbery. That's up to you to decide to what level you want this area restored to. The biggest issue I have is with regards to the material that's been brought onto the site. So in my opinion, the commission should require extensive soil testing of all of the imported soil material, specifically to what went into that hole, which was substantial. So there should be a number of test pits dug to 20 feet within that area, and all different soil samples sent out and tested for anything. That work would have to be done under the supervision of an LSP, and so we had proper chain of custody of the testing, and all those results would need to come back. That's at a minimum. And now you could potentially extend that to the rest of the area that's been restored as well. There's been a lot of fill that's been brought into this site, but you all can discuss that. Another item I have, and we've voiced concerns about this, is the amount of silt that has entered all of the adjacent wetlands, both to the north of the site and then also across the street. So there should be some type of a discussion or condition on cleaning those wetland areas and removing all of the silt that has washed off from the site. Those are my main concerns. It's nice to see that the applicant has finally filed something and moving in the right direction. I wish it was a little bit more complete, including the items that we had initially discussed, but you can do all of those things conditionally through your issuance of your order.
Now, soil testing, how many spots do you think we should test?
7.1 acres.
What's that?
What's the size, 7.1? Am I wrong?
I mean, the area, the real area of concern, I would say a dozen, you know, where the deep fill material was. The rest of it is fairly observable, that have been the side slopes and all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of that still has to restore. So I don't have a big problem with the side slopes. I don't, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. My main concern is what you can't see, which has been buried 20 feet deep in that hole. After we had specifically said, do not fill this hole, do not import material.
And it
So
seemed-
again, in ignorance to the enforcement order that was filed.
Right. And it seems like a lot of the material that's being used is a byproduct called the fines of their stone crushing operation. I have some concerns about that with respect to future percolation. It's a very clay-like substance. It sticks to all the heavy equipment, stuck to my truck, couldn't wash it off. But I have a couple of concerns as well. So approximately out in March, because I've been out to the site several times, the two existing small, and they're very small, I acknowledge, wetland areas. I observed and documented at least one obligate vernal pond species in those two areas, which would be wood frogs. Okay. Now, I'm sure you guys, you understand that vernal pool species return to the area in which they were first hatched, right? So those two wetland areas are so heavily sedimented, nothing's going to survive in there, number one. The sedimentations have migrated off to an area, as Dan mentioned, north of those original two areas. And they are wetland areas, they're obligate wetland plant species out there, and now they're becoming sedimented. Additionally, the catch basins, to my knowledge, in the last 6 months have never been maintained. And I have communication from SciTech dated April 20th, 2022, that says, quite honestly, that the silt fences will be maintained, construction entrance to be maintained, drainage facility to be maintained. None of these areas have been maintained, okay? And only until recently, I would say within the last few months, has there been some attempt to secure the property. Other than that, anyone could drive in there. So the catch basins, nothing's happened. The silt fence, the erosion control, that's been compromised. It hasn't been touched in weeks. I've been out there. So all of the things that have been told to us that were going to be happening have not been happening. And quite frankly, I don't speak for the rest of the committee, just myself, but I'm growing frustrated with this commission being patronized on this site. We had told there had been communication with the Audubon Society. I reached out to the Audubon Society, Andrew Ogdebeen. He said there hasn't been communication since well early last year. So they don't have any record of communication about this site. So would I love to see it donated? Absolutely. But I want to be sure if it's going to go to Audubon that they're not getting something that is going to have to be remediated. That's my concern. So the ripraps, so what you have is, you've got all of the water coming off that site flows in a northerly direction, northwesterly direction. And there was supposed to be a riprap installed there to prevent that sedimentation getting to those two wetlands. I don't see a riprap. I see crushed stone, 3/4 inch crushed stone. There's evidence in the runoff of reduction oxidation reactions taking place, which take place in an oxygen debt situation. That's all flowing into those wetland areas. So what was put in there as a riprap is doing nothing to prevent that, all of those materials from getting in. And one observation will tell you that they're not doing what they should be doing. So what I would like to see, if that water's going to continue to run off that site, something put into place to remove the sedimentation and any other issues before it reaches those two wetlands. So it would be a constructed wetland, a drainage swale. And I know this sounds like a lot, but there's been a lot that hasn't been happening out there, and I feel these problems have just compounded each other. And had these items been taken care of initially, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now, quite frankly.
I think what's important to note is that once the site becomes stable with grass.
A lot of that is gonna-
You won't see
sure.
the amount of sediment that's
Well, I
running
understand
off. So any of this type of cleaning activity, or that should be the very last thing that gets done after we've stopped contributing silt and sediment to this drainage swale. So those are all the types of things that can be done through, in order of conditions with a certain construction sequencing.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so there's a driveway on site. My concern with that, as Dan mentioned, is what if this becomes a dumping site? I know that the gate, there is no gate, there's easy access there. And if you are gonna restore this, I would say that if you don't need this, to get rid of this driveway, because I think that's just gonna invite people in there to do a lot more dumping and whatnot. So if we could remove that as well, if we are serious about restoring it, let's put it back the way it was.
Well, one purpose that the driveway serves, and it doesn't have to be a driveway, is that is what required that pipe be installed, and to be able to create a sediment forebay previous to it running directly through. So if we get rid of the driveway and theoretically the pipe, then that would be free flowing. So we do want to at least leave the pipe and the two depressed areas on either side. Now, there doesn't have to be a formal driveway.
Okay.
Now, somebody, of course, can drive through anything unless you block it some way, whether it's boulders, whether it's a gate. I would recommend, the installation of a substantial gate, similar to what you see like at Horseneck Beach, or, something 6-inch bollard steel gate that can be locked. Because if this was ever accepted, it's one thing to say that you want to donate something. You have to find an institution that wants to accept it. That would be something that they would then need to do to secure their own site. Nobody would own this site and allow unfettered access to allow dumping to occur. So I think it's something that we've asked for continuously, and I think that's, whether there's a driveway or not, the area over this culvert should be gated off substantially.
Yeah. I agree. I'm glad you're gonna donate it, but before we get to that part, I think we need to fix,
Let's get it restored.
restored. So I think what the board, we should probably make a motion for 12 test sites, soil testing, from an LCP, under their jurisdiction, and 20 feet deep. And then I would recommend too that crushed stone be added to the driveway, gate fixed, silt fencing and erosion control be updated.
And maintained.
We missing anything on that?
Well, what I think probably the best thing to do is why don't you allow me to send a set of comments to the engineer?
Okay.
All of these items, not only should they be conditions, they should be shown on the plans. So if they're shown on the plans, then you don't need to make them a condition.
Okay.
So I can provide them with what you're discussing tonight.
Okay.
They can include that on the plan set, and then you can just basically, at the next meeting, approve the plan set, because all of those enumerated items will be part of the plan.
Okay. So can I just have a motion to have
Wait,
Dan?
you still gotta listen.
Oh,
I have a
sure, go ahead,
question.
sorry.
You're not gonna get down 20 feet because it's solid ledge. There's not 20-foot
Well,
fill
We'll
inside
go,
it.
we'll go till we get
Well,
the
I'm
ledge.
just saying,
Yeah.
you're not gonna make 20
Till we
feet.
hit reasonable, yeah,
You
reasonable.
know, some places you're gonna hit 5 feet, then you're gonna hit ledge. As you get further south, you'll probably get about 10 feet. But then it's gonna be solid rock.
So
We'll
then-
test to
then-
impervious
The note
surface.
will be
Yeah,
excavate to,
well, I'm just,
to refusal.
just bringing that forward.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
And like I said, we're not trying to make things more difficult, it's just there are a number of things that should have happened along the way.
I agree.
And just haven't happened.
That settlement pond to the left, to the north of the driveway, we had that looked at over a year ago. We dug it all out, we restored it, we reseeded it, We put a riprap swale in the middle of it. There is a riprap swale there. We did dust some 1.5 stone over the top, but there is a riprap swale that runs across that pond. So just, you know.
No, I've
we have it-
observed
we have
that.
it
Well,
neglected.
then that should be shown on the plan.
And, but they are there, but they're not effective. So you did what you were supposed to do, but maybe the plan was ill-conceived to begin with, because it's just not doing its job. I mean, if you go out to the site and you look in the pond, the water's tan, and that's from the fines running off. So, you know, I'd like to see, some way to, at least for now, temporarily stop until this project is done, that, because again, I agree, once it's finished, planted, a lot of that runoff will cease. But it may not, because the fines are very clay-like, and they could, over time, form an impervious surface. So we could still end up with runoff from the lowest point, from that site. I could be wrong, I don't know enough about your business, but I do know what that material is like. I've seen it hardened and compacted, and it's you know.
It's a natural fines.
Yeah, no, I know, it's from the rock.
It's not, nothing contaminated.
Right, but
nothing
you
No.
got, but we don't know that, so,
Well,
because we asked you to have the material tested before you deposited it, and you ignored it and just deposited material.
I don't have any record of saying that we needed to have material tested.
So no, the site was under an enforcement order, that no activity was to take place until this plan was submitted. That was ignored. Attorney Zajac, is that correct?
Until the plan was submitted, or?
Until a notice of intent was filed for the complete restoration of the site, no activity was to take place on the site. That was clear,
Yeah, there was
and
meeting
that
time
was
for
ignored.
We never got that.
We were at the
Until the
meeting.
plan was submitted, or I believe activity ceased until the plan was submitted, but,
Oh, no. This activity has been occurring for months, filling in that hole, for months. And when was this just filed? I know it was kept being promised to us every month, and it wasn't.
Well, I think it was supposed to be filed in February. I think we had talked about it in the December meeting, and they asked for time. They asked for additional time, and I believe, I could be wrong, that I think it was
I
filed
knew it
in
was January or
February.
February, something
I
like that,
believe
that
is
was
when
supposed to be filed. So, why don't you ask for some other comments from the audience?
Any other
I
comments
also
from the
have
audience?
one issue.
Oh, sorry, Reverend.
Reverend, go ahead.
Go to the audience, and I have, it's
Was there any
separate.
questions in the audience? Okay, Reverend, go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to thank Mr. Boyle and Dan. I support it. I don't have all the technical expertise that you guys have on this, so thank you. You did mention box turtles, finally. Someone mentioned them. You're within walking distance of the, now newer, the power line and where the new electric station is, yes? Is that right?
Depends how far you can walk.
It's quite a distance.
Well, I've walked it
Yeah.
a number of times, I can tell you that. Maybe not this week, but in the past. When they did the checkout on the box turtles there, they had some way of tracking them. And they reported that they had, so what I'm telling you is that one of your neighbors, a little more distant, I guess, than some of these guys think, had found 28 different box turtles wandering around the electric plant, which was, certainly opened my mouth. Now, maybe they weren't, I think, and this was done by a reputable wildlife tracking group. And so I would hope that your fence, it looks to me as if one of the problems we have is I don't want to turn it into a turtle trap. So they've got to be able to get out. Now, I suspect the turtles have gotten in, and I
Well, with
have
respect,
no idea whether they've dodged the trucks or not.
Well-
And I'm not going to get into that. But the fence
Yeah.
should reflect that need. We really don't want turtles going in and out. And it might be a good idea to check with the heritage people
They
that you
have.
mentioned exactly what to do.
They have. And with respect, To the gentleman who owns the site, it didn't become it did not become a habitat for eastern box turtle until very recently when they updated the Mass Biomap. So they had no knowledge that it was habitat. It is habitat now.
They?
But this knowledge only came to them most recently, because I did speak to, Tim? is it
Tim McGuire.
Tim McGuire. I did speak to Tim, and it's only recently that that's been designated, when they updated the maps. So they had no idea that was habitat for eastern box turtle, nor anyone else who had designs on the site. So they would have, they would have, they would have
I mean, I
known.
walked there, I found box turtles.
Well, but Reverend Hornsby, the mapping that they used to decide if it's habitat
Well-
did not indicate that that was an eastern box
Right,
turtle.
I'm sure you're correct, I know you're correct, because you're usually right on mapping and things like that. I'm coming from a different direction.
Well, I understand that,
Which
and I
is,
understand your
I
concern.
have found box turtles within 15-minute walk of your site. That's all. So try not to,
No, I understand.
you know, and the
This
electric
restoration-
company found
This
28 of
restoration
them,
will
that's
only
all.
improve their habitat.
It's going to create
So we can look
the
at
restoration will create habitat for them.
What?
And
The-
potentially.
The restoration will create habitat for the eastern box turtle. No one's in disagreement that eastern box turtles exist out there, but in this restoration, it will become suitable nesting areas for, because I have spoken to Fisheries and Wildlife, and I have spoken to NHESP.
Well, if that's
so-
correct, fine. I
Yeah,
just
no, it
don't
is. I've
wanna-
spoken to them, Reverend
I
Hornsby,
don't
trust me.
I don't want to kill them,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
again.
And that is actually what Mr. McGuire said on site, that at the end, the restoration plan that we have will be a
Correct.
better habitat for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why we want to see it done and we want to see it completed. We're not trying to hem you up. But again, I think some things have just lacked out there and now we're playing a little bit of catch up, but I understand that, so. The only question I have is, so Fisheries and Wildlife, they didn't issue a cease and desist, but they said all activity should cease until the project is complete. So that project hasn't been completed by Fisheries and Wildlife or NHESP?
No, NHESP is supposed to get back to us with regard, we had a site visit, they were actually pretty
Right.
happy with the way that the silt fence was in the areas that it was, at least keeping the turtles out or.
Okay,
where they
keeping the
want,
turtles
yeah.
out, okay, because I will disagree with them on.
Yeah, they
it's
weren't
a-
looking at it from a,
Right, I would disagree with their,
Yeah,
its
we're not
effectiveness of
sure.
erosion
I mean,
control.
obviously, if you're doing construction there and you're running trucks in and out to pick up gravel, which is, you probably don't want a box turtle standing in the road. But, maybe we can get some experts and figure this out, maybe you could do it by next meeting.
They're already, Reverend,
They're already-
they're already involved with them, they're already
Yeah.
working with NHESP,
And their report should be finished before the next
and they're
meeting.
working
Well, I
with.
haven't seen the report.
Right,
Well,
but
it should
that's
be
because
finished
it
by the
isn't
next meeting.
completed, and NHESP is working out there with them. Fisheries and Wildlife are out there, so
Good.
they've been out there and they've done a site visit, and they're monitoring and they're
Yeah, I
involved
know
right
they,
now.
I know
So-
they have. Let's go.
Any other further questions?
Just a question for you, John and Dan. Are we leaving it to the, can we make a recommendation on soil testing as far as analysis, or is that up to, we leaving that up to the
You
LSP?
can leave it up to me, you can leave it up to the LSP. I mean, we've discussed,
I say
a
we-
dozen different test pits. Now, in the test pit itself, you can have multiple elevations, depending upon how deep the test pit is. You know, if there's, and you see different soil material from the bottom of the test pit, so this all comes in, they don't fill in to the top in this one little section, they fill in a vast area, 2 or 3 feet, then different material comes in, and then so, you know, I can be on site during the testing if you so choose, along with the LSP to make sure that we're at least looking at, okay, if we see something, we could theoretically dig a hole and find stumps, construction debris, you know. Cross my fingers that that's not the case, because that'll be another
Well, there's
hole.
some of that out there.
Well, hopefully it's not below the water table. and
Oh, I don't
everything
think-
that-
yeah.
so,
And if I may, just to that point, Mr. Aguirre, we're happy to have an LSP on site to work with that. I think a prescriptive number of test pits is always a difficult thing. Typically, it's based on the volume of soil that you're looking at. So we're happy to work with the city to either do it as part of the review or as part of the on-site work as it gets done.
I think a dozen at our designated location should be more than sufficient.
All right. You had another?
Well, I just wanna say, yeah, there was some illegal dumping there. We did haul that material away, back
Okay.
out of there, went to a recycle facility. So, we did not dump any construction.
Well, I mean, I've been out and I've
Debris.
walked the site, and I've seen, you know, in the fill, there's plastic bottles, there's some tree stumps, there's some pipes,
Loom
there's,
screenings,
there's-
that's what we
there's-
filled with.
yeah, there's also that, I mean, there's a pile of house plantings out there, so,
Bye-bye.
not good.
Well, if the board feels comfortable having Mr. Aguirre draft a letter of our concerns,
And just basically establish conditions.
Well, what we've discussed tonight, so that they're able to put them on the plans.
Mhm.
yeah.
And they'll come
Yeah.
back next meeting, hopefully everything that we've discussed is on the plans.
Right.
And then we can issue the order. It's always easier just to issue an order based upon the plans that are submitted, rather than try to enumerate a number of conditions.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
And are we going to receive another plan before next meeting?
Yes,
Within within a week?
let's say
before the
within a
meeting?
week, yes.
Yeah.
I'll send the email out tomorrow in anticipation of the plan being in.
It's just so we have time to digest it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's all.
Dan's gonna send a letter with our concerns, to put on the plan. So can I have a motion to have
Okay.
Dan draft a letter?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Yes.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have that gentleman's name for the record?
So can you just,
What?
Which one, the lawyer?
No, the-
could you just state your name before you leave?
Dan Jones.
Dan News. Okay, thanks. Just for the record.
I work for
Thanks.
okay, but you didn't say it.
He said it.
Said it now.
Next is notice of intent SE-24-815, owner applicant is Prism Cables and System USA LLC, project locations within the Taunton River, Assessors Maps NA, filed by VHB on behalf of Prism Cables and Systems USA LLC. Applicant is proposing installation of a navigational aid light within the Taunton River east of the Federal Navigation Channel, approximately 330 feet ashore from Fall River. The navigational light will provide illumination, wayfinding, and additional safety measures to the marine pilots of vessels utilizing the private channel with traverse to the Taunton River east and west to Brighton Point and Somerset. Could you just state your name and
Well, good evening, my name is Florian Dimitri, I'm with Maritime Engineering Company, Moffett Nickel, and representative of the applicant.
Good evening, I'm Laura Leach from VHB.
Could you,
I have slides. Can I just plug in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
and could you make sure you just speak loud enough for
Got it.
Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, sure.
Pile by pile.
yeah.
Not sure which.
Oh, she showed it off.
No, that's cool. I was waiting for this.
You want me to give my report while she's setting this up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So as the engineer stated, this has to do with a navigational light in order to align ships going into Brayton Point for the new facility that's opening over there. It does extend well off of the shores of the city of Fall River. We have a letter from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife with no adverse comments. The only condition that I would say that you should put on this, and it may be somewhere floating around, that we get a letter from the harbor master with no adverse comments as well. I'm sure you've already spoken to him, so hopefully that wouldn't be too difficult.
I'm sure he would be in favor of aid to navigation, one would
Yeah.
assume, right?
So, those are my only comments. Other than that, there are other permitting hurdles yet, Chapter 91 license and other things. This is just the first step, so it's a very, very minor activity.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So, we're gonna just talk through exact location and the proposed work. Very minimal wetland resource impacts, a few mitigation measures, and then we will touch on regulatory compliance. And as the agent spoke, the location is in Fall River, but this is a light to facilitate the ships that are entering the channel, the private channel that's going towards Somerset and the Brayton Point site. The Brayton Point, or the Prysmian Brayton Point site, is a proposed cable manufacturing, submarine cable manufacturing facility, and they are going to have ships coming in and out of that facility. And as part of that, the local pilots have requested a navigational light that will assist as those ships are coming in and making that turn towards the private channel from the federal channel. Again, this is a more zoomed in of the exact location, and it is outside of the federal navigational channel and also outside of the designated port area of Mount Hope Bay. And I would say closest to Kennedy Park, which is the nearest land feature.
Okay. So after speaking with the pilots and trying to figure out what we're going to do with the marine terminal on the other shores of Brayton Point, the pilots advised us and highly recommended to us that we install this navigational light on the Fall River shores, if you will. And that will help them get in and out of the existing channel right now more easily, more safely for the pilots in adverse weather conditions. So that is the reason that we are even proposing to install this navigational light. And what we'll be doing there is installing essentially 5 lights, which are size of binocular, each of them, just one eye of a binocular. And these lights will project flashing green, white, red, and flashing red lights, identifying to the pilots whether or not they're steering too far to the left or too far to the right of the center line of the existing navigational channel. And that is what we're currently showing right now. It's an approximate projection of this light. And how we'll be supporting this light, which will be roughly about 25 feet above mean low water level, or about approximately 20 feet above mean sea level to normal water elevations. We'll be supporting this with a monopile. We selected this monopile in order to be less obstructive to the waters, as opposed to a tower with a truss tower or anything of that sort. I figured that a monopile will do the job to stabilize this light, while also maintaining the adequacy of the angles. As you can see, the angles and the projection of this light is very critical to the pilots. If under adverse weather condition, for example, the light leans over, if it's like a flagpole, it will project the wrong way. The pilots will then hit a shore, which is not what we want. So it needs to be a very stiff structure, and this is why we are proposing a 30-inch steel diameter pipe pile with a thickness of 5/8. And this pile will be rock socketed to the bottom of into competent bedrock. And at the top of it will be something like what you see on the screen. It'll be solar powered, and then you'll have a knee brace platform that it'll be mounted on. And on either side of the pipe pile, you'll have a ladder for personnel to service this or to be able to install this light. It'll be a battery pack on what's shown on the right sketch on the left. That will be fed by the solar panel, and then the light is over there on the knee brace platform.
And just during construction, a couple measures to mostly protect fisheries, but these were good things that we've sort of coordinated with Division of Marine Fisheries on. So floating turbidity curtain will be installed, and also soft start measures to sort of disperse fish that are in the area before full force pile driving. These are regulatory compliance. We know that the impacts are really minor, about 5 square feet, to accommodate the size of the pile. But good to just mention that there's no permanent alteration to the bottom topography or sediment, and no changes in water quality or temperature, and that this isn't a sensitive bottom like with submerged aquatic vegetation or anything like that. There may be shellfish in the area. In fact, it's probably likely. But again, the work is not going to alter the water or water quality there, and it's likely that the shellfish will here attach to the new piles, so it basically provides them with habitat. And again, we are in a fish run, but this shouldn't affect the migration of fish through that area. It's very temporary, and the time of construction is very short. And that's it. And we're open to any questions if you have it.
You'll be doing work off, what, a barge?
Yes, correct.
And it's probably a project that takes a day? Or not a lengthy time?
It's a 30-inch pile, it might take a little.
Little time to drill down, so.
Yeah, it might take, it is less than a week, but roughly maybe, 3 days, maybe then if the weather cooperates, if not, maybe a week. Essentially, the process is we're going to driving the pile, and once they reach the bedrock, the common bedrock, they're going to start drilling, grouting from underneath, trim and grout it, and that process can take a little bit of time.
Okay. And I saw you had a shield that just focuses the light out onto the water, not forward.
Yes, absolutely.
People won't be wondering.
Yeah, we had discussed where this will be installed just off of the Lower Kennedy Park overlook, so they had addressed all of those concerns. 2 questions I have that is just general knowledge is there any type of protection required around this? Like any type of fender or dolphin to keep people from hitting it? Or is there not? I mean, I guess you could hit a marker too, whether they're red or green. I just didn't know, because this was a little bit more stationary and rigid, is there any type of protection required for this?
That's a great question, and we are working with the Coast Guard to determine what kind of markings we need to put on this steel. Ideally, I'd like to paint it some sort of like yellow, so it's very in your face and
Shouldn't be
bright,
red and shouldn't be green, so let's make sure it's a different color. So theoretically, you may be back for an amended order if anything substantial needs to be installed. And then my other question is there any kind of internal monitoring system that tells you when it's too far off kilter to be utilized? And either gets shut down or lets the ships know, hey, do not rely on this, or we have a problem? Like an internal leveling or something like that?
The equipment will need to be maintained regularly and calibrated regularly. There is no internal instrument that we are even aware of that's made out there by manufacturers that do that type of ability, that have that monitoring. But so the answer is no. However, we're not aware of it, but it will be mitigated through the maintenance process.
Okay, great, thank you.
Will it have a day mark?
I'm sorry?
Will it be a day mark?
Day mark?
A day mark, a reflector day mark, like you see on a lot of different navigational beacons, a day mark. It's a reflective day mark.
The actual pipe itself?
No, it's a day mark. They're on a lot of the,
Listen, Mr. Fisherman.
a lot of structural navigators, they have a day mark, it's a reflector. So that you can see it during the day. No, okay,
Currently,
just,
no.
it's not, doesn't matter, just curious.
The main thing was to protect the boaters from hitting this pipe pile. They'll be 20 feet, 25 feet off.
Yeah, they should be
off
able
the
to see it
water.
without a
Yeah,
day
it should be
mark.
visible.
I'm just curious.
But just in case,
It's 30 inches, so.
Yeah.
But also at nighttime. That's a part that we are probably mostly worried about at nighttime, whether somebody sees us or not. So it might be, the Army Corps might have us, and the Coast Guard might have us put some markers in there, some reflectors in there for that purpose. If you're asking directly at the top of it, on the actual aids, if there's gonna be something like that, no, but maybe on the body of the shaft itself, of the pile, that might be some.
Maybe there'll be a bell.
I don't think there'll be a bell.
It shouldn't move, right?
Correct.
Any other questions?
So you said all of this is solar powered, correct? So is there, what happens if, let's say there's a storm or in the winter time when you have less sun? Those lights, how long are they gonna be able to be powered without having sufficient sun, let's say?
Yeah, that was one of the questions that we went to the manufacturer with, and they're essentially, the way that the operations of the vessel will be working is that the vessel will come into this area maybe a dozen times a year and be in and out of there, during those times. This light, it's over-designed, that battery, such that it can essentially run 24/7. And they're only needed for a few hours.
It only turns on when the ship is there.
Oh, okay, that's,
Yes.
which makes what Chris is saying even more important, that there is some kind of reflector there, because obviously that's gonna be sticking out of the water 20 feet, 25 feet.
Yeah.
And the concern
Chapter
would be if
91
there is,
and,
I was under the impression that the light was on and anybody in the channel could see the light.
no.
But if that's not the case, I think it's very important that there is some kind of, that it's highly visible. Because I was not under the impression that it was gonna be going off and the ships have the ability to turn it on and off. So, I mean, that's something that would be a concern for me if I'm a boater, if there's something sticking out and you can't see it. So, what Chris is proposing, or maybe painted it a color that's gonna stand out, but I think that's something that's very important.
Yeah.
Well, they still gotta go to chapter 91, Dan?
It's gonna have to go through chapter 91,
So
it's an
that'll-
Army
that'll
Corps
be
permitting, so.
finalized.
The navigational aspect of it.
They'll make sure it's all
is
locked in.
open, Yeah.
The Coast Guard will dictate to us what we do with that structure, whatever reflector or painting or both, they will dictate that. And if not, I wanna make sure that I put something in there just for,
Do you know of any other locations that something like this is installed, like what's the closest, something similar? I know you guys have dealt with stuff all over the place, but is there anything local that a navigational light similar to this exists?
a range light.
Just out of curiosity.
I can find out, I can find out for you.
Appreciate that. Anybody in the audience?
Any other questions from the board?
Very good presentation.
Sir, could you state your name and,
Yes, sir, and I'm just gonna help, I can call it, say Paul Vegan, 1380 A River Road, Westport. I don't know if it's identical, but in the Maritime Terminal in New Bedford, the Offshore Maritime Terminal, they've got a similar arrangement
similar.
where you're coming into that channel, you've got a solar powered array that runs red to green, to try to keep you on point. So Florida would know better if that's similar or identical, but there's, that type of system exists in the Bedford Maritime Terminal down the south end here. the
Okay.
offshore wind terminal.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
all right, no other further questions? Can I have a motion?
Anybody in the audience, anybody else?
Anybody get help? I don't think so. Can I have a motion to issue an order of conditions, with the conditions that, get a letter from the harbor master, submits with no adverse comments?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, just a question. So if we provide the, an email or communication with the harbor master, do we come back before you to close?
No,
Okay,
no.
just, it's a condition. Great.
It'll all be written, it'll just be
Perfect.
that, as soon as we get that condition, then you can
Okay.
go ahead and pick it up.
That's great. Thanks.
We already
Good
have
luck.
something similar to
Thank
that.
you very much.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next is a request for certificate of compliance, SE 24-789, owner applicants Highland Farms Development LL2 LLC, project locations 175 Hillstone Lane, assessor map is U-04-0056, filed by SciTech on behalf of applicant. Applicant is requesting a certificate of compliance, states with the exception of lawn development on this lot and work authorized under this order has been completed in substantial compliance with the order of conditions. There is also a minor wetland encroachment located in the southeast corner of the subject property. Yes,
So what we did on this was we did a site walk and looked at the as-built plan that was submitted. some of the white wetland signage was put in an improper location, so I directed the owner and applicant to relocate that signage, install a post and rail fence along with the original approved work limits were, and clean up the very minor encroachment that they had into the bordering vegetated wetland. That work has been done. However, the engineering firm hasn't gone back out to update the as-built plan and get that submitted, so I would recommend that this gets tabled to the next meeting.
Can I have a motion to table?
So
Motion
moved.
to table?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Next one is request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-786, owner applicant is Highland Farms Development 2 LLC, project location 133 Fieldstone Lane, assessors map U-04-0054, filed by SciTech on behalf of applicant. Applicant is requesting a certificate of compliance with the exception of final lawn development on this lot. Work authorized under this order of condition has been completed substantially compliance with the order of condition. Anybody?
So similar to the last one, there was no minor wetland alteration here, that was fine, but some of the wetland signage actually went onto an abutting property, so we've asked them to pull that back and show that on the final as-built plan as well, and finish the lumen seeding, so we're just waiting for the updated as-built plan. So
Okay.
similarly to item number 3, I would recommend that you table the matter.
All right, can I have a motion to table?
Motion to table?
Second?
Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Motion tabled. Next, ANRAD SC-24-816, owner applicant is BBC Realty Holding LLC. Project location is 0 Innovation Way. This map is W-19-0187, filed by Zenith Consulting Engineer LLC on behalf of BC Realty Holding LLC to review the approved and submitted wetland delineation.
You have your legal ad?
Could you just state your name and?
While he's setting up, if you want, I'll give you a quick little rundown of my report. So the only concern that I had on this, and it's not that big of a deal, is there were only 2 data sheets submitted, and they were both in association with one wetland flag. So my only recommendation would be is that additional soil transects and data sheets and data plots be performed along the lines, and those locations should be shown on the plan. I know in the wetlands report, in the data sheet itself, it does mention that they're on the plan, but they are not. So the real line from WF 2-17 to 2-3, there were no data sheets for that. So I would request some information to be added to the file for that, and then specifically in the location of flags 2-9 through 2-12. And then along the front, my main concern would be from flags 1-5 through 1-8. Hydraulically, you would normally assume that this wetland line would follow the 182 contour along the front, and that there were some test pits submitted with regards to flag 1-17, however, they were to 15 feet of either side. So between the information that was submitted to the upland side of 1-17, some hydric soil investigations in between that test pit and the wetland flag itself, just to make sure that.
So 1-7 or 1-7?
1-7.
7, you said 17.
Was that?
You said 17.
Yeah, before. Yeah, so 1-7 out front.
Yep. Okay.
So they do one test pit 15 feet into the wetland, one test pit 15 feet outside of the wetland. So now that's 30 feet in between them. The one inside of the wetland showed groundwater at a certain elevation that dictates hydric soil condition. The one to the upland side showed none. So somewhere in between there. So if there was one done right at flag 1-17, or just upland of it, we should determine where that line could potentially shift. We're really splitting hairs here, but if the information was submitted previously with the proper amount of data sheets, then we could probably move this, but it's really minor work for them to go out and take a look at. Go ahead, Jamie, give you a presentation.
Sure. How many extra would you like, or additional would you like?
I would say on the rear line, I don't know, maybe 3,
Okay,
and then just look at that area between flags
one and.
1-5 through 1-8. That's all. So just provide enough documentation that illustrates that that's correct.
All right.
I apologize that I didn't have time to go dig the holes myself, but.
No, and we don't expect you to. We have no problem asking for the wetland scientist to go back out there. Obviously, this is the first step in a process for development on site, and want to make sure that we get the resource correct. I do have confidence in the wetland scientists, but we also want to make sure that the city's comfortable as well, so I have no issues with that.
And just so the commission knows, the site directly to the south, you had just issued an ORAD for that. That was the very large piece. And this line picks up right where that one left off. And this has been flagged in the past in a very similar location to this. So I think dot a few i's and cross a few t's and we'll be fine.
Okay. Board have any other questions? Okay. Can I make a motion to table and wait till we get extra data on flags from 1-5 through 1-8 and 1-17 and the uplands, have additional test pits?
Motion approved?
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we know when that meeting will be?
1 month. So May 1st is the next meeting? Yeah. We meet the first Monday of every month.
May 1st. Thank you.
Okay, next is a notice of intent, SC-24-817. Owner applicant is Mellow Estates LLC. Project location is 1262 Brighton Ave. Assessors map is J-24-0002, filed by Zenith Consulting Engineer LLC on behalf of applicant. Applicant proposes removal of existing rock outcrop to establish a contractor's yard, material storage facility. Also, restoration is proposed within the previously disturbed riverfront area and buffer zone, as well as cleaning existing drainage swells in Brighton Ave, subject to MassDOT approval.
Good evening, J.D. Bissonette, Zenith Consulting Engineers. The record here on behalf of Mellow Estates LLC. And Dan, do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, again, the site is located at 1262 Brighton Ave and Fall River. We did receive a DEP file number 024-0.
Could you speak a shade louder?
Sure.
The microphone is not on for here, by the way. It's
Got
for
it.
television.
All right, so DEP file number 024-0817. Just to be upfront, this is an after-the-fact notice of intent filing for work that was done without an order of conditions. So the site consists of about 4.9 acres. There's BVW, riverfront, and flood zone located on this property. The wetland resource areas were delineated by Stephen Schmiel, and there is no natural heritage on this site. The violation or work without a permit included vegetation removal, earth disturbance within the 100-foot buffer, the 25-foot riverfront, and within the flood zone. This plan set proposes mitigation and also future work that the applicant would like to do moving forward. I'll start with the mitigation, which starts in the vicinity of S1-100, which is in this vicinity here, and runs all the way around to the back, which ends here at W1-129. What is shown as the light blue is riverfront on this plan. Has a 25-foot riverfront area, but also shares a top of bank or wetland characteristic under the Inland Wetland Protection Act as well, and has a 100-foot buffer zone. Where the blue changes to green, it is no longer riverfront, it is just bordering vegetated wetland and has a 100-foot buffer zone. What we're looking to do for mitigation is the 25-foot buffer and riverfront area. When you go out there now, it's a mess. It's loaded with invasives. There's been disturbance in there. There's historical disturbance where if you look on the backside, you'll see stacked stones and fill. What we'd like to do is we would like to take and clean up that 25-foot area. We'd like to take and remove the invasives, remove the debris, the trash, and take and bring in nice organic loam, about 8 inches of it, level it off to a reasonable elevation, grade-wise, and then plant northeast solar pollinator mix. And this was picked out by the wetland scientist because of, in longevity with the invasive species that are growing there, unless we're gonna use some type of a herbicide or poison, there's gonna be no way to really keep those at bay. So part of our proposal is also to have a mowing plan of at least twice a year to keep not only the grasses and flowers at bay, but also keep the invasives at bay. Part of the protection for the site will include boulders. I would like to place boulders in the beginning around the site at the 25-foot strip. This is what we're calling a temporary boundary until the buffer is completely established and ready. At that point, what we'd like to do is construct a 6-foot tall chain link fence at that 25-foot. This will offer a nice permanent barrier. There'll be 2 egresses in and out to that area for mowing on a semi-annual basis or more. The fence will run, we actually are starting the fence over in this vicinity here, tying into an existing fence, and then we're gonna pick it up again over here and run it right along with this, with the proposed 25-foot. The proposed work on site is, the applicant would like to remove the ledge outcrop that's on site now and bring it down to a reasonable grade. They won't-
Remove what?
The existing ledge rock that's on site. They'd like to bring that down and be able to use the site for a contractor's yard. To do this, they'd like to bring it down several feet, in some cases over 15 feet, and bring in and have a gravel base and drainage system, as you can see on this plan. As far as stormwater is concerned, we're proposing a wet water quality swale with check dam and which will have a flow mitigation device, and then a flare dam with a head wall at the end for discharge. Another part of our application, which is probably within jurisdiction because it involves drainage, is out at Brayton Avenue. We'd like to actually clean the existing drainage depressions that are on the side of the road and the entrance. We have one in particular that we can't even see the pipe, it's covered. So the applicant would like to obtain permission with the commission, but also with either MassDOT or DPW or both, to get in there, access it, to get the drainage working again that's in front of the site. And then the next part would be erosion controls. We've prepared an erosion control plan, it's a 2-page sheet that's part of the set. Understanding that the rock removal process is gonna take time and the drainage can't be installed on a huge hill of rock, we've decided to put in what would be a siltation basin, which we can construct in the interim during construction and swale the grade around the rock during construction to keep it so that stormwater sediment from running off site is really contained and maintained. We have details on the next sheet and throughout the set that help us achieve those measures. I think Dan has a chance to take a peek at it, which he probably has. We're happy to receive his comments on it. And that's really about it.
A couple of questions. After the enforcement order, you had piled some asphalt milling that you still have on site?
Yes.
Okay. Then the restoring, do you know the number of trees that you have an estimate?
We weren't proposing to plant any trees due to the invasives. When you go out and you look at the existing, the existing trees that are still there, they're just covered with, I think bittersweet and other invasives themselves. They're being choked out. Typically, in a situation like this, we would have planted trees, something that could stabilize, maybe some low
Little
shrubs.
louder.
I'm sorry, some trees and low shrubs would typically be the way that we would go in this case, and some, some wild flower mix or something, but with walking it with the wetland scientist, he said that it would be a full-time job just trying to keep pruning the invasives as they're coming up and not choking out the trees. So if we plant trees, it's gonna become an invasive problem within a short time.
But you were gonna mow to keep the invasives out.
And it'd be tough to mow unless we mow around the trees, which we could plant sporadic trees throughout there, if that's the commission's, desire. Our thought was to not make it just a forest again, but to try to,
But the trees were alive and thriving, right? Even with the invasive species that you said were there.
so I
The trees
can't,
were alive and they've been there for a long time under those conditions, correct?
I can't speak, when I
Well-
was brought onto this project, the conditions are the way they are now.
Well, I can
except
tell you
for
they
the
were
asphalt.
there because I drive by there every single day and I know those trees were in fact thriving and they were there doing their, the right thing.
Okay,
So they were surviving.
okay.
Can I say something? Everything that was there is still there.
The trees as well?
If you go there, on the back side of the perimeter on the water, there's trees growing. 10, 15 in, there's no trees, it was all like he said, the invasives, it was all 6 foot tall, I don't know what you call those things that are growing around the trees, that's what I took down. I didn't take down any trees there.
They did on the ledge. They took down.
All the trees you see
on
down
the ledge, there's
came
no
from the top of
question.
the ledge.
But I can't speak to what was next to the water, because I was brought in after the enforcement was issued.
Also, what do you plan, before we can come up with a 100-foot buffer zone, 50-foot, what's gonna be stored there and what's gonna be on the driveway, gravel? Because we need to determine that before we
Sure, yeah.
settle on.
Do you want to speak to what's going to be stored on site?
Construction material, sand, 3/4 stone, mulch, basically like a material yard. If you go, you wanna do a flower bed, I'll have mulch there, loam, stuff like that.
Will that be stored in bins?
Bins, yes, concrete block bins.
Will there be any equipment?
I'm sorry?
Will there be any heavy construction equipment?
Yes, there'll be
Vehicles?
construction
So,
equipment.
all right.
Yeah, so we'll add that. I'll sit down with my client and we'll add that to the plan.
But currently you also have asphalt on site, right? There's a pile of asphalt there?
Asphalt millings, yes, that's what I
So-
brought into, because the site is loaded with trash from the previous owner. It's scattered throughout the whole back area. That's what I was piling up to get rid of, because it's full of steel and concrete and trash.
So hold on a second, where did that asphalt pile come from? From the site?
No, that's stuff I brought in.
The millings.
Brought it in.
It's millings, it's grinded asphalt.
Right. So is that gonna be, you said that you're gonna have mulch, you're gonna have sand. Is that something that you're gonna bring in more of that?
That's gonna be the base to pile everything. Instead of paving it,
Well, that's not gravel.
Right.
no, it's not gravel.
No.
But we can
Your
use gravel.
proposal was for a gravel storage area.
Okay, so we can use gravel if,
You want me to just go through my report?
Sure.
Could you
So-
say again what you're gonna do with the asphalt?
the asphalt, I was gonna use it to lay it down for an area to park our equipment, so there's no
Okay.
mud and tracking everywhere.
So, let's start at the beginning.
Ah.
So this is not an after-the-fact fight. This is a response to an enforcement order. Very important, two different things. The applicant, after he was told not to do anything on site, he imported the two very large piles of millings. I went to the site, spoke to him, directed him to remove them immediately. That has not taken place. That's gotta be 3 weeks ago, I'm guessing. I had sent you an email, Jamie, of when that happened. And Joe, we spoke on the site. So the ignored enforcement order should be something that this commission looks at very, very closely. I have issue with an existing conditions plan that does not portray the true existing conditions with regards to limit of vegetation, limit of clearing, number of trees that have been cut. I mean, this site, and I had sent Jamie an updated aerial photograph that you all have, I believe, a month before the current owner purchased this property, and you can see the level of vegetation that occurred on this site, whether it be grass, scrub vegetation that provides wildlife habitat. a number of trees. I don't know how many. So the very first thing I think we need is an existing conditions plan that illustrates where this limit of activity brings us to. It may be well within that 25-foot buffer zone, it may not be, I don't know, the plan doesn't show that. So there should be a comprehensive existing conditions plan that illustrates what's happening drainage-wise as well. There are a number of culverts and directions that stormwater flows that when you look at it for face value, it may not mean a lot to you, but when you're looking at pre-existing and proposed drainage analysis, where water is flowing to is very important. There's a catch basin on site that's just labeled. I don't know where it goes or where the piping goes to, but water does get to it. So an existing conditions plan should be, a very first starting point. The commission should consider the limits and the scope of the restoration area with regards to any types of fencing, signage, the distance from the resource area that you would be okay with, whether you feel that gravel or now asphalt millings is an appropriate surface for a use like this with regards to stormwater running off into the resource areas. I have a number of items that deal with the proposed activities, but I honestly, and you've read them all, I really don't even think we can even get to some of that until we know what our true starting point is. We have a drainage analysis that assumes a large portion of this site is existing gravel. That's clearly not the case. So that's our starting point. So I think we really need to take a hard look at where are we starting from? Where is the water going? Some of this water doesn't make it to the Quequechan River directly. Some of it may in fact make it to the South Watuppa Pond through that drainage system that runs under Brayton Avenue. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but first, comprehensive existing conditions plan, so you can make the assessment, hey, what's happened here? You have the aerial photograph, you can see the level of vegetation that's taken place, or removal. That's not reflected on this plan set at all. And then you can discuss, what do you want in the restored area? Do you want trees? Do you want shrubs? Do you want grass? Do you want it mowed? You may not. You may want to let it grow wild, invasive species or not, because that provides a certain amount of habitat. But in the sake of time, I think the first step would be dealing with that. I had a couple of other items that I had sent to the applicant's engineer with regards to the existing access easement that allows them to even access this site. I don't know if you were able to take a look at that, but there should be no vehicle parked, anything parked or stored in that right-of-way.
Even the Connex boxes.
Even anything. It's the right to pass and repass, not only for this property owner, but others up gradient from the site to the north. So no activity can take place other than passing and repassing in that location. That needs to be shown on this plan with the conditions of what that license allows you to do. We're also going to need, when you submit design plans, where are you going to park employee vehicles? Where, a real site layout plan, comprehensive, and how we're going to deal with that.
Right, because it says vehicle storage, stockpile area, size and location may vary. It shows a very small portion of the site. So we would need more definitive information.
That's only the erosion control plan.
Right,
That's
right.
That's only what people are gonna park when they're taking this
Okay,
ledge.
all right.
They're
Okay,
not
that's the
even
erosion
showing
control.
what's happening.
So we're not even seeing what vehicles are gonna be stored where. Heavy equipment, I don't know. I don't see too many.
And then I
I've
had-
worked around some that don't.
I also sent you another email, or maybe it was a phone call. So ledge removal like this requires a level of permitting well beyond this commission.
Yes.
Which you would need to file with the planning board for any type of soil removal like this. So I would suggest that you start that process soon, because this commission will not act until that permit is in hand. It's useless to waste this commission's time on something that may or may not happen, or that your entire approval is predicated upon this ledge removal. So you should start that process now. Other than that, I don't have anything much to offer other than that.
Well, we can't really move forward unless we have
No,
the
until we get
information that's
a
necessary.
complete plan to know what our starting point is. You know, and our starting point truly is what you see in the photograph that I gave you. It's not what's currently existing on the site now.
If I may, so as far as topography is concerned for existing conditions.
Louder.
As far as topography for existing conditions is concerned, you're okay, it's just it's
Surface
using the
areas,
aerial photo,
like-
okay.
Show limited clearing, show surface areas, like I know in the drainage calculations, a lot of the surface areas were being, I wanna say 85,000 square feet of existing gravel storage area. I
Yep.
don't necessarily think that's the case if all of this vegetation and grass is growing out here.
Sure.
So I think you need to use that photograph as your starting point.
Okay.
And in your drainage calculations, those should be the conditions that you're utilizing, whether it's grass poor, fair. As you know, creating the worst existing conditions for runoff purposes helps you in your proposed condition.
Sure.
So we need to make sure that we're accurately representing what's there now. And when you're dealing with the
What was there?
ledge, although you may say, well, ledge, it's 100% runoff, basically, it's an impervious surface. Well, that's not true, because it was completely vegetated, so we're gonna have to deal with that as well. So we would like you to enumerate how many trees were removed within the buffer zone, how many were removed on site, and then that can give the commission some indication, or at least the information to determine, hey, should we require any restoration of trees in the area that you may or may not allow activity to take place.
Okay.
Now, did you email him a copy of our concerns?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure if you wanted to add anything else, so I
All
could do
right.
that.
Is there anything else the board has a question on, or wants to add, or?
No, I think there
I
are,
just have a short question. You mentioned if you get permission to take away, to knock down the ledge, what were you planning to do with the rocks, the ledge parts, the rocks?
The processed material from the.
If you take the ledge out, what are you gonna do with it?
We're gonna use it for what we need to build what we need on the site as far as the swales and everything, but, I do plan on selling it.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions in the audience? All right. So can I have a motion to table this?
So moved.
Second.
aye.
Aye.
Aye?
All right,
Yes. Yes.
Excellent, thank you for coming in. I'll email you that.
All right, thank you, appreciate your time.
Next is notice of intent, owner applicant is Tibro Gentos?
Ontario Jacinto.
Gento, okay. Project location is 245 Philstone Lane, Assessors Map 2-04-0059, filed by Northeast Engineer and Consultant on behalf of applicant. Applicant proposes to install an in-ground pool and surrounding apron patio. Portion of proposed work is located within a 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetlands.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Jeff Bowman from Northeast Engineers. I'm here representing Tibero Jacinto, the applicant for this notice of intent. Quite simply, what we're looking to do here is to install a pool in a surrounding patio, an apron area around the pool. That apron area will be built out of using pavers, so it would be, won't be completely impervious. You'll get some runoff going through the pavers. The pool itself obviously will be. The limit of work that I'm showing on this plan stems from the existing siltation control that's out on site now. We would certainly shore that up. The proposal is to bring in some new shore wattle, surround the limit of work, and construct the pool and patio area. On the north side, there is a small 18-inch high retaining wall that we're proposing along that limit of work, about 3 feet off of the shore water line. So, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. What you see on the plan here is what they're looking to do. The limit of work, again, that I'm showing on this plan is what was established, I believe, and I did not research this, but there was a notice of intent that was filed for the house construction. I'm assuming that limit of work that's out in the field now, coordinates with that approved plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
So if I may, board members.
Sure, go ahead.
As Mr. Tolman suggested, the BVW that's shown on this plan was previously approved under an ANRAD for the Highland Farms 2 subdivision. There was a subsequent notice of intent filed for the construction of the home, which was on previous tonight. So the limit of work for the construction of that home, for the creation of rear yard, is pretty much represented adequately by what's shown on this plan. The parcel, again, has no COC for the existing work, needing loam and seating work to be completed. In my opinion, the pool and patio area proposed is much too large for this rear yard area. The initial limit of work was for the establishment of lawn area, which clearly has different runoff issues than, or performance issues than a paver or a pool. And I don't know if Mr. Tolman offered this, but this also requires a retaining wall. Did you mention that?
Yes, I did.
All right, so the
18
entire site
inches
would have
along
to
the
be
back.
elevated with a retaining wall first along the wetland, and then squeeze this in.
Then fill brought in behind the retaining wall, or just, would it just be the retaining wall?
No, so
Fill-
it's going to be filled maybe about a foot and a half.
18 inches
ultimately,
at the
around-
most, at the back.
To flatten out this area
Yes.
along that back area. My concern is, the proximity to the wetland with this patio and this pool area. I don't, whether they use a smaller pool, get rid of the 8x12 L shape of the pool, put the patio back from the wetland area, reshape it. I think it's just much too close to the bordering vegetated wetland. I think a reasonable sized pool, something like a 16x32, being able to pull all of the activity to a minimum of 10 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland edge. Now, that would be to the retaining wall or to the pool. Maybe a little bit more reasonable. Anytime we've also approved a pool, we also make sure that any type of backwash from the filter be done into an underground pit at a distance of a minimum of 25 feet from the bordering vegetated wetland. And any permit of patio should be done so utilizing porous pavers.
Right.
That's all.
And that is the proposal.
Okay. Because that's a lot, if those were pavers, that'd be a lot of impervious surface, which includes the pool, directing runoff to, obviously, water flows downhill to the BVW. So it's a huge patio area, so
Oh, it's almost the same size as the
the
house.
house, well, I'm looking at it, I see the footprint, it's almost the same size as the
Do you
house.
know which paver they were proposing?
I do
Or
not.
Can you get a spec on
I
that?
can't get a spec on it, I'm not sure what they are proposing.
No. What do you think their thought is about making the pool smaller? or pulling
I
the-
would have to, I'm not even sure, I'd have to get back to them, so, I mean, we're gonna have to continue this anyways due to lack of a file number, I believe. So I can get back to them and just see if there's something else acceptable. But the one thing I would like to add is that, with this situation with the patio and the pool here, with the retaining wall along the back, I mean, personally, I think that serves as a nice limit of work. And you tend not to get encroachment when you have a permanent barrier like that, that's set up, albeit, 3 to 5 feet off the wetland line. There's not, you typically don't see encroachment beyond that, at that point.
Where would you dump your grass clippings?
I would throw them out, I'd recycle them. Recycle them and have them picked up.
You are a steward of the environment, Mr. Tolman, we appreciate that.
Well, having lived in the city all my life, other than the last 3 years, I always recycled my yard waste. And I would expect that they would do the same. And then the other thing, bringing that up, having a lawn area back there that, that would go that close to the wetland with the limit of work that's established now, you also have the potential for chemicals being dumped and treated on that lawn and that running off into the wetland. Whereas if you have, a patio like this relatively flat, you are gonna get some runoff, but that runoff would tend to be cleaner than what you would, could get off of a lawn that's treated with chemicals.
Well, I think we have in our order conditions
I believe in
certain
the order of
chemicals,
conditions was
so.
They can't use-
couldn't use nitrogen
Yeah.
based
Can't use nitrogen.
fertilizer. Whether or not they listen to it or not.
That's, there you go.
Whether we can catch them or not.
Right.
Yeah.
The existing, the other thing I'd like to note, the existing deck right now that's shown on the plan, that's only 8 feet off of the bordering vegetated wetland line on the east side. So having to maintain like a 10-foot buffer, would be a little problematic if it, if the commission would like to see some sort of buffer, it could be less than that, that would be fantastic, just to give them a little bit more room to work.
Is the commission comfortable with matching the 8 feet that the deck is rather than 10?
To go all the way around?
All the way around.
All the way around?
So no patio area within 8 feet.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay. Again, so we have no file number, so whatever configuration you come up with,
I maintain an
don't have
8-foot
any
buffer.
retaining wall or patio or pool within 8 feet.
If I keep the retaining wall right at 8 feet and put the siltation barrier, a couple of feet off just for
Yeah, it's grass.
construction.
so, yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
But any hardscape improvement, no closer than 8 feet.
Okay.
But what's happened is, and we're very happy that the applicant came and filed for this prior to the installation of the pool, because that has not been past practice.
Out there, so hoping.
Well, when I
people
drove
get-
through the neighborhood, I really didn't think this would be much of an issue, and then I found out after the fact that
That there are
most of
all
that
other
work's been done without
enforcement
permits, so.
Yeah, it's been the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
all right,
We appreciate the fact that the homeowner is
yeah.
trying to do it the right way.
Just a comment, will there be any maintenance need for that roof drain recharge system if it's gonna have a hardscape over it? Does that present an issue for the resident? Not so much for me, but.
No, but I mean, what we could probably do is relocate that outside of the patio, which might be best,
You can wrap it
considering if we're
around
gonna
that
reconfigure the pool. we can-
northwest corner of the house and just get
Right.
rid of it entirely, if you're gonna drag the pool up or whatever configuration. I think it's a matter of where do you want the patio, up closer to the house or on the other side of the pool,
Right.
one or the other, so.
Yeah.
On the other side of the pool would be south-facing, so that's why they're trying to,
Yep.
get some patio area that way.
Any other questions? Motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right, thank you. Next is the notice of intent, owner applicant Hyde Development LLC, project locations WS Robin Street. Census map is D-05-0035, filed by Northeast Engineering Consultants. On behalf of applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling, associated driveway, utilities on the west side of Robin Street. Portion of proposed work is located within the 100-foot buffer zone, a bordering vegetative wetland.
Again, for the record, Jeff Cohen, Northeast Engineering Consultants, here represents Hyde Development LLC, the applicant for this notice of intent. And for the record, WS is west side. So it's on the west side of Robin Street, at the end of the road. Right now, the last big vacant lot that's over there, what we're proposing to do is just construct a single-family dwelling. There is the entire lot is basically within the buffer zone. So therefore, any work on it would be within the buffer zone, but this is a buffer zone only project. We're simply looking to construct a single-family dwelling at the south side of the property. There is some wetland that does spill over onto the property at the northwest corner. But the wetland that we're closest to is located off-site just to the west of where the proposed dwelling is gonna be. We are gonna be maintaining a 45-foot buffer between the dwelling and that wetland. We are proposing roof drain recharge systems, 2 of them to be located towards the front of the dwelling, a minimum of 71 feet off of the bordering vegetated wetland line. And other than that, it's a pretty simple, single-family dwelling filing. Be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
So if I can just offer, the BVW line that you see before you was approved and filed previously under SE, I believe it was 24-714. That was for the development of the 3 homes that you see that surround this, that approved that wetlands line, and the resurfacing of both Nightingale Streets and Robin Street that you see, and some utility work that was done down there. So the site currently now is about entirely cleared, down to about where that sewer easement is now, I believe. There is also a water easement to the south side of the property, which will make sure that it gets labeled to site plan review. The only issue I have with this is that the proposed grading activity to the rear yard should be pulled back a distance of 10 feet. These lots were created and previously developed prior to the 25-foot no-touch policy. And as you could see here, the institution of that 25-foot no-touch policy would really eliminate what would be the rear yard to this house. So, again, my issue is the wetland is off the site itself, pulling that work back to be 10 feet from the wetland, and possibly the installation of a post and rail fence along that 10-foot limit with our normal standard language of wetland beyond this point, something to that effect.
Alrighty.
Other than that, Dave supplied roof drain dry wells to accommodate runoff from the, clean runoff from the roof. The proposed vegetation of the site through grass would only improve existing drainage characteristics. It's a 19,000 square foot lot with not a lot of activity in a very close proximity to the wetland.
Alright. Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment? Like in lieu of a post and rail fence, say if we put a retaining wall 10 feet off the.
Yeah, if you want,
corner,
I mean, if you wanted to
kinda
make a
flatten that.
flatter backyard
Yeah.
with a retaining wall,
Yeah.
either or.
Then with the signs on top of the retaining wall.
Because your applicant may not, that's similar to what we had done on lot number 30. You'll see
Yeah,
there's a
correct.
retaining wall that wraps around the back of that, so if you wanted to do something similar to what that treatment is,
Sure.
I don't have an issue with it. And Jeff says they're gonna bag all the grass, so we don't have to worry. Absolutely.
He's gonna take and recycle.
In Somerset.
In Somerset.
All right, can I have a motion to issue an order of conditions upon receipt of a file number with no adverse comments? And recommend that the limit of work be no closer than 10 feet to BVW and post and rail or whatever you wish to put.
Post and rail fence or
Retaining wall.
Barrier.
Retaining wall and install along the limits of work with standard language or conditions.
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Yes.
All righty. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to take 9 and 13 together, so that we can read it all out and then?
Sure. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
I don't know. Abstain.
Okay. We have letters to be put on file. One is a discussion of new biomap from Division of Fishery and Wildlife. 10 is discussion of immediate response action plan for 714 Main Street. Next is a correspondent discussion of 401 water quality certification, amendment number 10. 12 is a discussion of Kilos commuter service 2023 yearly operational plan. And 13 is correspondent discussion of notice of remote public comments hearing for National Grid proposing to construct an electric transmission line construction. Can I have a motion to put on file?
Motion to accept and place on file?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda was the discussion of bylaws.
John, I'd like to make a motion that we have a separate special meeting for this, because we tend to kick the can down the road. We're here, this meeting ran kind of long, but I think, I don't know if, what the
Pick a
available.
date, we'll advertise it, and the only thing on the agenda for that, so we meet every month now. So pick a time in between when you guys are all available.
I mean,
The
if you-
only thing on that agenda will be that discussion. It
If
has to
you-
be a public hearing, but.
If you're all
it
willing,
won't
I
get
mean, I
bogged.
just think we can't, I don't think we can do our due diligence. If we're tucking it at the beginning or the end of a meeting, I think there's some substantive discussion that needs to take place on this, and so I think that, I just don't want to, I don't want to do a disservice.
I think they just, the state bylaws just got updated too, so,
Yeah,
We did.
so,
yeah, they just
what do
updated.
what do you think for availability? And again, it doesn't have to be at 5:30 on a Monday night. It can be whenever you guys decide is,
How about Friday night at 8?
have fun discussing your bylaw.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's my, past my
Partly
bedtime.
because of the COVID thing, I'm away from April 18th to the 4th of May. I just am trying to keep that time, and I'll be out of the
Okay.
country. I'll be in Cuba,
Oh, we can do it before the 18th, right?
so I'm
Good for
trying
you.
to
I hope they let you back.
do it before that, maybe in the
We're only
next
so
10
lucky.
days.
Yeah.
Pick a date, guys. I'm, let's see, just the third Monday of, third Monday of the month I can't do, so.
How about next Monday?
We have to be able to notify,
Yeah,
put the
we gotta-
legal ad in, so how long is that?
You come
48
back-
hours?
What day you
Put a
come
legal
back?
ad in the paper.
May
for a
5th, I
special
hate to
meeting.
drag it out.
48 hours?
No, legal ad in the paper, not posted with the clerk. At least 5 days too. So.
That's 7 days, so we can't do.
Today is the 3rd. We'd have to do it before the 19th. 17th, you're not here, John?
Well, 17th is a holiday,
Oh,
Yeah.
Patriots
yeah,
Day.
right, Patriots Day. 18th?
18th, that's my CPC meeting, so.
What time?
We moved 6.
What's wrong with the 17th?
It's
It's a
Patriots Day.
holiday.
So what?
City Hall's closed.
City Hall's closed. It's my day off.
All right, if people don't want to meet then, that's a different issue, but, I mean, we could meet somewhere else.
Well, I don't think.
No, it has to be here.
Yeah.
Just, closing government center is not a great reason to me, that's all.
Yeah, but public has to have access.
Yeah.
Reverend, and-
Okay, I'm just trying to get it in
Reverend,
before the 18th.
Reverend, when are you coming
I'm
back?
sorry.
Not until May what?
May 5th.
May the day not come.
When do you leave?
18th.
So you're not gonna be here for the May
18th of
1st
April.
meeting?
I'm gonna miss the next meeting.
How about May?
Yeah,
when-
do the
when's-
May.
When's he coming back in
May
May?
5th.
May 5th.
Wanna do May 8th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can
May
do
8th
it.
work for everybody?
Yeah.
That
May
gives
8th?
Nina plenty of time to get it in the paper?
What day of the week is that?
Monday.
Monday.
Okay, 5:30?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we can
Two
do,
more
it. Is
weeks.
anybody available
We've
earlier?
been going on this for,
Are you available? Anybody available earlier? I mean,
I mean,
see,
earlier?
I would not have put it at the end of the
In the
day.
day, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm available
no,
all the
I-
time, but no, everybody else works.
Yeah,
All works
okay.
till 5, I don't know about.
We don't have the luxury of being
Right.
retired.
John's
Mine.
permanently
That's what-
retired
I'm
and
retired.
independently
That's what my
wealthy, so.
calendar looks like.
What is it, empty?
Yeah. I'm looking at my calendar like I need to.
I think keeping the time that we
Consistent?
have consistent.
Yeah,
that
for the
makes
public,
more sense
for the
than
public and
anything
everything
else.
else, yeah.
We can have it out there, we can have it anywhere in the building, so.
Yeah.
Let's do that, May 8th. So why don't you,
Thank you very much.
why don't you guys, somebody make a motion that we're, recommend that we're gonna have a special meeting on May 8th?
All right.
Can I have a motion to, special meeting on May 8th, 5:30?
Motion for a special meeting, May 8th at 5:30?
Seconded?
Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay. That concludes. Can I
Public
have-
comment, just make sure you ask,
Any comments?
just general public comment. I want it to be said over the microphone so
Oh,
that we
yeah.
don't get an
Okay.
issue with.
Any
open
fellow
meeting law
comments?
violations.
Any citizen input? No?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Seconded.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
That wasn't too bad.
You gotta have
Aye?
a special meeting.
I figured 2
Yes.
hours and it's 7:28.
Yes,
How's that?
whatever.
You gotta push a couple of them
You know,
along.
2 minutes here and next meeting another 15, depending on how bad busy it is. It doesn't make sense.
You all have a nice Easter. You celebrate Easter.
One.
Yeah.
You also, everyone, have a wonderful